Welcome back to the Aquarius podcast. Today we're talking about the Sagittarius New Moon at 20th degree happening on Friday, December 19th, 2025. Let's be clear right away. We are experiencing the Sun in Sagittarius, Moon in Sagittarius, both at 20th degree, Mercury in Sagittarius at the 10th degree, which is associated with Capricorn, Venus in Sagittarius at the 24th degree, associated with Pisces. Pisces is currently at the North Node in Neptune, as well as Saturn. Beliefs don't just shape meaning, they shape behavior, relationships, and emotional health. This new moon asks whether the beliefs you're carrying are still true for you. This is not a feel-good reset. This isn't aspirational, and it's definitely not optimistic in the way Sagittarius is usually marketed. This is a sobering new moon. You see, the 20th degree is very close to Capricorn, who is grounded, strategic, and a lot more calculated. The Sagittarius new moon doesn't ask you to dream bigger. It asks you to take responsibility for what you've already been believing, endorsing, co-signing, excusing, avoiding, encouraging. If you've been feeling flatter instead of inspired lately, more realistic than hopeful, less interested in meaning and more concerned in what actually holds up, that's not burnout, that's accuracy. Late degree Sagittarius is where belief stops being about exploration and theory. It's where philosophy meets consequence. As you know, Saturn is the planet of karma, which stands for consequences. And with Saturn and Neptune pressing in, this new moon in Sagittarius is about what happens when our belief system, our faith, our ideals, our guiding narratives, our mindsets no longer protect us from the reality of our lives, the consequences of our actions. This new moon doesn't ask, what do you believe? It asks, what does your belief cost you emotionally, relationally, practically, and are you willing to pay that price? That's a harder question, and it's really the real question. So today, we're not here to hype this transit. We're here to work with it honestly, practically, psychologically, and without pretending that it's comfortable. So take a breath and let's get into it. First, let's get into the emotional landscape of this Sagittarius new moon. Let's talk about how it actually feels, not how it's supposed to feel. This new moon lands like an internal verdict, not dramatic, not explosive, just quietly final, very much so like Capricorn energy. There's a dawning awareness that something that you once believed, whether it's a direction, whether it's a religion, whether it's a justification or a personal myth, no longer survives contact with the truth of your lived experience. Emotionally, this can show up as deep fatigue with idealism, with theory, disappointment that doesn't need to be explained anymore. Everything is crystal clear. It is unsettling. It is a calm that feels like you cannot afford to lie to yourself about this thing anymore. There's grief here. This isn't grief in the cinematic sense. It's the kind of acceptance that comes after you've exhausted denial. Denial has run dry. With the sun and moon fused together in Sagittarius at the 20th degree, this isn't a mental realization. Your identity is involved here. It feels like parts of you is dying. Your nervous system is involved. Beliefs are being challenged. They've hit the body. They've hit the mind. They've hit the chest. Swallow them in your breath. Irritability, emotional withdrawal, anxiety. And with Venus tied in, this isn't happening in a vacuum. Your values, attachments, relationships, self-esteem, and self-worth are all wrapped up around what you believe. So when a belief starts to crack, it can feel like a loss of belonging, a loss of identity, a loss of meaning, a loss of safety. That's why people get defensive right now, not because they're right, but because they're scared of what falls apart if they're wrong. Emotionally, the Sagittarius new moon carries moral frustration, a reduced tolerance for what is vague, for platitudes, for half-truths. There's less appetite for debate, less energy for pretending. There's a quiet resignation with consciousness. And here is the core developmental task. This new moon is not asking you to abandon your beliefs. It's asking you to outgrow the beliefs that are immature. Meaning isn't disappearing, it is being stripped of fantasy. So sit with it. Sit with honesty. Where am I emotionally invested in a belief that no longer matches my reality? Where have I confused hope with avoidance? What responsibilities have I delayed by staying idealistic instead of practical? If that lands heavy on your heart right now, that's good. That's the work. Let's talk about why this new moon hits so hard. So we have the sun and the moon in Sagittarius. This is conviction not turned outward for judgment, but rather turned inward. Emotion and identity are fused together, which means people are taking belief challenges personally. Disagreements feel like invalidation. Uncertainty feels like a threat. The danger here isn't ignorance, but rather it's being too rigid. Certainty becomes emotional armor. The growth edge is learning that changing your mind isn't betrayal of self. It's a sign that your brain is working. It's a sign of psychological maturity. It's okay to change your mind once you've gathered new information. So ask yourself, where am I clinging to certainty because ambiguity makes me feel nervous? With Venus also in Sagittarius entangled in this new moon, Venus is bringing attachment into the picture. So the things that you value, the ideas that you align with, what feels right, what feels wrong. But Venus is under strain here with the sun and moon and Venus all in Sagittarius, which means our value systems are being stress tested. We're not celebrated here. We're being pressure cooked. Okay? This shows up as relationships exposing mismatched ethics, money decisions requiring realism instead of hope, discomfort around compromises that you've been making quietly. This isn't about losing love, it's about losing the dream, losing the illusions around love, around self-esteem, around alignment. The uncomfortable truth here is that shared values matter more in a relationship than shared feelings right now. The square to Saturn is adding some drama that is being felt deep to the core of our soul because it confirms what is out of alignment. A boundary has already been reached. A limit has already been tested and been spoken for. Something that you tried already didn't work. Emotionally, this can feel like disappointment without surprise, guilt, without a clear direction for repair. There's a sobering awareness here of the consequences of our actions. Saturn isn't punishing you, it is correcting your narrative, which is being fueled by your beliefs. Not everything meaningful feels good. Those of us who live in the Western world have this fantasy that pleasure needs to be infused in everything. Sometimes pain offers you greater growth than pleasure. Not everything true is emotionally comforting. Adulthood is facing reality. Reality isn't cruel, it's clarifying. This new moon in Sagittarius is also square Neptune, which is currently in Pisces, right along with Saturn in Pisces. This is the core emotional tension here. Neptune dissolves fantasy, especially the kind that we use to survive. This can feel like grief over ideals that are lost. There might be some spiritual confusion. There might be an unsettling emptiness that comes with a hope that's no longer there, that collapsed. But let's be honest, what's collapsing here wasn't true. It was a lie. It was protection. Neptune is asking, what truth have you avoided because it disappointed you? Let the grief exist without rushing to replace it with another lie, with another story, with another fantasy. Mercury, being square Saturn in North Node, is bringing into focus our words. Words matter. Words matter now because direction is fragile. What you say, what you don't say, is nudging your life forward or backwards. This isn't about winning fights or winning conversations. It's about speaking in the way that aligns with your future self. It's about truth. Approval is tempting, but alignment is about truth, and alignment is much harder than approval. Mars in Capricorn being square in Neptune is bringing a disciplined anger to this situation. It's not explosive. As you know, Capricorn is controlled, it's focus, and it's very intolerant of nonsense. So that can show up as feeling exhausted with inefficient thought processes, inefficient patterns, inefficient behavior, empty promises, inspirational language that doesn't actually land without follow through. Motivation isn't the issue. The issue is structure. Our belief systems have to have a container. They have to have boundaries. They have to have limitations. They have to have structure. Structure is how we build a solid foundation. Clarity here is replacing hope, if we're willing to let it. Consistency is replacing belief systems if we're willing to invite it. Jupiter in Cancer on the midheaven is making this new moon private, but it's affecting our public reputation, our leadership, our visibility, our image. Growth here requires emotional responsibility. It's not about having the moral high ground. It's not about moral grandstanding. It's about being truthful. You don't lead by believing louder. You lead by believing with care and consequences. It's this balance of action and reaction. Now, let's move on to some house-based confessions and affirmations based on where you have zodiac sign Sagittarius. If you have it in the first house, the confession is, I've mistaken being right for being a whole. The affirmation, I allow my identity to evolve without collapsing. If you have it in the second house, the confession is, I've held on to belief systems because they felt safe. The affirmation, I build values that support my future, not my fear. If you have Sagittarius in the third house, the confession is, I talk to defend myself, not to connect deeply. The affirmation, I communicate with accountability and curiosity. If you have Sagittarius in the fourth house, the confession is, I protect emotional stories that limit my growth. The affirmation, I build security on truth, not nostalgia. If you have Sagittarius in the fifth house, the confession is, I seek validation through expression or belief. The affirmation, I create without needing to be affirmed. In the sixth house, the confession is, I spiritualize discomfort to avoid discipline. The affirmation, I grow through repetition and responsibilities. In the seventh house, the affirmation is, I expect others to validate my worldview. The affirmation, I respect differences without betraying myself. In the eighth house, the confession is, I fear what I'll discover if my beliefs dissolve. The affirmation, I trust transformation more than control. In the ninth house, the confession is, I've confused conviction with wisdom. The affirmation is, I let experience redefine my truth. In the 10th house, the confession is, I've measured success by ideology, not impact. The affirmation is, I lead with emotional consequences in mind. If you have it in the 11th house, the confession is, I stay loyal when we're no longer aligned. The affirmation, I choose community that reflect who I am becoming. If you have it in the 12th house, I hide my reality through beliefs is the confession. The affirmation is, I face truths gently without escape. This new moon in Sagittarius responds to behavior, not beliefs, not intentions. It's about shifting your mindset. Replace I need to be right with I need to be honest. Treat discomfort as data, not failures. Emotional regulation is very important when dealing with Sagittarian energy. Name what beliefs you're grieving specifically. It's okay to let things go, but we can't let anything go that we're not even capable of naming. Name it, look at it, examine it, and ground your body. Routines matter when Mars is in Capricorn because insights come from repetition right now. Because this new moon transit is in the sign of Cancer, there is an element of relational awareness that's being brought to the surface. Notice where disagreements trigger insecurities. It's important to speak clearly without moral superiority. Nobody's perfect. This is also a wonderful time for some self-reflection. Where does certainty protect me from vulnerability? Some zodiac signs love to hold on to certainty much more than others. Those guys are probably having the hardest time with this transit. Another question to reflect on is what belief systems support who I am right now? Not who I used to be, not who I was raised to be, but who am I right now? The Sagittarius New Moon is about emotional adulting. It's not about abandoning meaning, but it's about earning it. And earning it by bringing congruence to our intelligence and our emotional reality. As you know, zodiac sign Cancer is a sign of the mother in astrology. It's about emotional intelligence. The shadow work here is admitting where our belief systems have become a way for us to avoid responsibility for our behavior. Desire work is choosing meaning that survives reality. Okay? It's about living in reality with our belief systems, not using them to escape reality. Vulnerability is allowing our faith to change without being self-loathing. Your work during this new moon in Sagittarius cycle is to audit yourself. Audit one belief at a time. Audit one relationship at a time. Audit one long-term goal that you may have. Ask yourself, does this still hold up? Does this reflect who I am, not who I was trying to be? Don't rush to replace what's falling away. Let the quiet do its work. Mars in Capricorn is strategic, grounded, calm, deeply perceptive, but slow moving. Let time guide your steps. This is how Sagittarius matures from optimism to integrity and wisdom. Take care of yourselves, stay grounded, and be willing to let go of what no longer aligns. That is where growth happens in discomfort. I'll talk to you next time. Happy Sagittarius New Moon. You can book your astrology reading at intuitivehealing.com. You can also watch videos at Intuitive Healing here on YouTube for Astrology 101 content. Listen to the Aquarius podcast on Spotify, as well as here on YouTube for your horoscope. If you're interested in astrology and love connections, you can visit at Styled Under Libra. And of course, for health and wellness and holistic healing, visit at Styled Under Virgo for all of your astrology content. Thanks so much for watching.